Space, time, reality, the very universe itself. It is a prism of endless profitability, ever expanding. The possibilities of what could exist, who could exist, or what could happen are truly endless. Stories of regret, anger, fear. Stories of hope, dreams, and the good of all mankind. Myths of light and dark, good and evil, hero and villain. All interconnected into a massive multiverse of stories, characters, and worlds. But hey, let's look at the one made by a kid's imagination and a snow globe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Crossover Nexus podcast. I'm your host, Zach Stewart, Iron Ninja. Joining me today are Nora Synth.
Hello!
And Marco Ramiro, also known as Depth Shell on Twitter.
Hi, how you doing?
So, I guess to kind of explain what this podcast is, about a year ago, my friend Xavier kind of released this small video about the Spider-Man and Jessie crossover. And just other weird facets of crossovers across just everything. And so, I, being the weird nerd that I am, knew about other weird crossovers that expanded across this massive multiverse. And I explained it to him. He's like, dude, you should just, get this all, narrative down. And thus, I bought a conspiracy board to put this all together.
As we all do.
I know. Listen, as Andrew Garfield does in Amazing Spider-Man 2, it got out of hand. And thus I created what I've dubbed the sitcom connective universe. But those who are more keen to the eye would notice in the actual conspiracy board Saint Elsewhere, which in turn makes the entire universe that I have connected the Tommy Westphall universe. Now, just out of curiosity, how aware are you guys of the Tommy Westphall universe?
Zero knowledge.
Okay, so I guess to explain the Tommy Westphall universe, do any of you guys know what Saint Elsewhere is?
I've heard, it sounds familiar.
So, Saint Elsewhere is a hospital drama. It was a hospital drama, I think, in the 80s or 70s. And the final episode of the entire series heavily implied that the entire show took place with an autistic kid's imagination as he's staring at a snow globe.
Very cool.
I've seen that before. I remember seeing a video about that, and then I just forgot the names. I just remember the snow globe imagery. Yeah.
So the hypothesis is, if it is all within this kid's imagination, any crossover that the Saint Elsewhere characters had on other shows, or any show that had a crossover on Saint Elsewhere, are part of that universe. And that philosophy goes throughout the entire other crossovers throughout that, this expanding branch of this universe and eventual multiverse that it would become. So, in total, just for this podcast, I have got a master list of about 144 crossovers.
Jesus Christ.
It is about 144. They're crossover specials. It could be a crossover episode. It could be a 4-part episode, a four-part crossover special in general. So all of it are just actual canonical stuff that connects this entire massive universe. There are several Friends episodes on this list. There are several The Love Boat episodes.
I did actually watch a couple episodes of The Love Boat because when I was little, we didn't have cable, and the only station that would come in was MeTV. So I watched a whole lot of Gilligan's Island, Cheers, MASH, and Love Boat.
I believe Cheers is on this list too. Cheers is definitely on the list because they've had a couple Saint Elsewhere crossovers actually.
Very cool. Are we a Saint Elsewhere crossover?
Who knows? Listen, reality is an illusion. We all are just existing.
Wake up. We're
in a simulation right now.
We're a simulation within a child's imagination. It's canon.
A lot of these shows' names, I have never seen them before, like on Friends, Child's Play, whatever. But I always see these names pop up in my school whenever like someone's wearing a Friends shirt and they be bragging about, look, it's Friends, it's Friends. It's like Friends is so good. It's like, what is Friends?
Yeah.
So I'm just here listening.
I've watched a little too much Friends.
For this episode in particular, because it is the first episode, I will be doing what I am calling executive decisions for the podcast. I get 2 of these for an entire year. And once I run out, I run out. Executive decisions are basically where I can just choose whatever crossover I want. And you guys will actually have an ability to do this too. After your 5th appearance on the podcast, you will have a guest choice, where you guys will actually be able to choose what crossover we watch. It can be any crossover. It doesn't even have to be on the master list. It can be Alien versus Predator if you want.
It is a guilty pleasure of mine.
Please, not
I love Aliens versus Predator.
No.
Well, there's multiple Alien versus...
This is my executive decision. We are watching Aliens versus Predator. Pull it up. Pull it up. We're watching it and we're playing the game.
Oh, God, no.
The 2010 version.
No.
Extended cut.
Oh, no. It just keeps getting worse.
Tonight we watch Aliens versus Predator Requiem on full brightness.
But yeah, for the very first episode, I will be choosing Spider-Man and Jessie. Now, I just want to ask you guys, what are your guys' relationship with the Jessie series?
When I was very young, I watched... Oh, wait, is this the show with the Komodo dragon?
Oh yeah, it is. Yes. It is.
Okay, then I do know the show. I did watch a lot of it when I was little, but unfortunately, those memories have drained over time.
For me,
they've slipped through the cracks of the hourglass.
For me, it was the I remember this one joke that just stuck with me for no reason at all. With Jessie, I think it was the first episode. The Komodo dragon landed in the snotty neighbor apartment, and the Indian kid who owned the Komodo dragon, he came down and got it before it got to the dog. And so she talked and she says the Real Housewives of New York or something like that, and then the Indian kid says,
"Oh, absolutely. But if you want to see a real cat fight, you should check out the Real Housewives of New Delhi."
That joke just has stuck with me for 10 years for no reason. I have no reason to remember this joke. It never comes up in conversation, except for this instance, but...
This is what the podcast was always about, was finally telling people this joke in a context that matters.
Exactly.
I was around that age, whereas I was very impressionable. I think it was around 5 years old. There was it was between that era of Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place, and transitioning to Austin and Ally, Jessie. I remember there being this other show, but Jessie is the one. My older brother had to sing for Austin and Ally because he liked a lot of Lost French, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But Jessie, I gravitated towards Jessie because of Bertram, the butler, and Mr. Kipling. The running gag was Mr. Kipling, the Komodo dragon. And it was also around the time was Big Time Rush because, oddly enough, there was also Stephen Glickman who played Gustavo, and Gustavo was eerily similar to Bertram in some way. And I follow both of their Instagram accounts, so that's how I still remember. It's oh, Bertram from Jessie and shit.
Actually, now that you say it, I completely remember Bertram because
how could you forget?
How could I forget? Yeah,
He's literally God. He controls our universe.
I remember specifically because of his one line. It says, "I could clean that up, but it's so far away." So the crossover in question is with Ultimate Spider-Man, which... What is your all relationship with that show? Because I think we all have our own opinions about that show and character.
I didn't get past season 2.
That's fair. That's fair.
When it first came out and I was younger, I was like, "Oh my God, Spider-Man! Oh my God, it's Spider-Man!
I'm wearing the shirt right
That's
now.
my dad!" I watched the hell out of it. I loved it. I loved the humor. I loved the Deadpool-esque fourth wall breaks.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my God, that's so funny. Wow, this is such nice humor. I've never seen this somewhere before." And then season 2 happened, and surprisingly enough, I thought it got too serious when during
Really?
season 2.
You thought
yeah,
it was
I was
too
like,
serious?
you know, I missed the.
Your drop
Yeah.
up was that
I was like, man, I missed the humor.
your drop off was that it's too serious. That's interesting. I think
Yeah.
for me, because I actually liked a lot of season 1. I think season 1 tried something different. It was trying to be different from Spectacular because they legally couldn't do Spectacular.
When I grew up on like Ben 10 and Spectacular Spider-Man, without those shows I wouldn't like draw at all, because I used to draw a lot from like Spectacular Spider-Man and Ben 10. And when Ultimate Spider-Man came out, I was like, that's not Spectacular Spider-Man. What did they do?
Yeah. I think for me, it came out that a weird time where Spectacular had just like when was Spectacular canceled? I think it was like around 2011.
It was
And
canceled because Disney bought the rights.
Well, they didn't buy the rights.
to like the TV.
They
Yeah,
were just
but-
kind of giving them back to them because Sony was like, listen, it's gonna our new Spider-Man movie is kind of taking a little bit longer, so because they were kind of about to void their contract that if they don't make a movie within X amount of years, that they would lose the Spider-Man rights. So they're like, oh, we can give you guys the TV and merchandising rights if you let us take a little bit longer with this movie. I think that from what I understand, that's what the situation was. And then Disney's
Gotcha. So Spectacular ended in 2009, and Ultimate started in 2012.
But yeah, that show started because Disney got the rights, and then they legally couldn't continue Spectacular. Because honestly, I think if they have legally been able to, they would have continued Spectacular.
Drake.
Oh yeah,
Bell.
now we get to this conversation.
I am insulted every time someone comments in one of my Spider-Man voiceovers. They're like, "Oh my God, you sound like Ultimate Spider-Man." I'm like, "No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't."
I do not hear that. Actually,
someone
I do
else.
not understand why people are saying that.
You
do not sound at all like
Thank you.
Drake Bell. Drake Bell's like, "Hey,
No.
what's swinging? What's up, guys?"
What's poppin' lockin'? Bienvenidos, power bottoms.
Hey, it's Power Fist and fucking Iron Man. How you doing,
Hi there.
everyone? It's like, hey,
Whoa.
Hi there.
fourth wall, Deadpool.
Oh god, the Deadpool episode really hurts me.
I am the Ultimate Spider-Man. Whoa. Kill me, please.
But like, they had Tom Kenny as Doc
Tom
Ock,
Kenny was great,
which is very
honestly.
menacing.
Tom Kenny with Doc Ock was
Tom
really
Kenny
cool.
was Doc Ock.
Like, because his Doc Ock was like because his Doc Ock was like so fucking creepy. They made him like the creepiest shit, and then they made him a Hydra agent like later in his like his whole arc was eventually he became part of Hydra.
That's because I think Superior was coming out at the time, and they were like, "Hey, we can capitalize on that."
But then they adapted Superior in that the 2017 series, which I heard is awful.
I have only watched like 3 episodes of that show,
I
and I
tried
couldn't do any more.
Because my mother was like, give it a chance. You haven't watched it. It's like, give it a chance. But my philosophy is that if I read the reviews first, but then I ignore them and waste my time on something that's I knew is going to be bad, I could have used that time for something else. But I was like, fine, let me listen to it. Let me give it a chance. Is it story-wise? It's okay. It's just the animation. It's like Disney. It's Disney for fuck's sake. They could just put in more money, but clearly they haven't, because obviously it's going to make bank. So they haven't put in as much for it.
For the 2012 Spider-Man, they had a good animation budget. Then they kind of expanded that animation budget to apply to the Avengers Assemble cartoon, and then the Guardians cartoon, and then they just decreased the budget over time just because it's cheaper to make. And then it just got all those shows just got worse and worse in animation over years, just because of because it was all the same animation style for 3 shows at the same time.
I used to be so hyped for that new Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon when it came out, because they had hooked on a few, and it's like, it's just gonna be like the movie, and I loved the movie. I loved Chris Pratt and Groot, and then it as I continue watching, it's like, no, this is not my shit. No.
I never watched that. That was at a time where I just wasn't watching cartoons anymore, which is unfortunate. I've gotten right back into it.
Because for the Guardians show, I was gonna say, they're and Ultimate Spider-Man, the 2017 show, and Avengers Assemble, those shows I like to call synergy, Marvel synergy at its finest. At its worst, I can really say, because with Ultimate Spider-Man, it wasn't really synergistic. It was more or less just kind of like, let's make a show. that was until like they got the Spider-Man rights for the movies. They worked with Sony and made those Homecoming films. They then, after Ultimate Spider-Man ended, they then made Spider-Man 2017, which really, 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 really was synergistic with Homecoming, because Spider-Man has all this tech, he's working with the Avengers all the time, he's doing all these arcs, whatever.
MCU Spider-Man has done irreparable damage to the character in all forms of media.
God, Marvel synergy.
Mhm.
It's kind of like damn. It's like it kind of at first it was just used to be appearance wise, like, oh hey, they're just making Star-Lord look like Star-Lord from the movies. I didn't have an issue with that, but then once like when you realize like, oh shit, they're gonna make just because one thing happens in the
It does
movies
happen, yeah.
and not everyone's agree with it, they're just gonna make it like the movies and then it's gonna be
Yeah,
moving on forward.
Yeah. My one thing is, like, I wouldn't have as big of a problem with these shows if the art style didn't make me want to scoop my eyeballs out with a spoon.
Yeah.
That's being generous. That's being generous.
I can't look at them for too long because I'm like, well, why didn't you shade that? Why is the sun beating directly down at all times on every character? There are no shadows. It's just flat texture. It feels like they didn't put any effort into these shows.
No shadow.
Ultimate
no.
Spider-Man did have shading. That was like one of the very few shows that had the shading.
Yeah, I really liked the art style of Ultimate Spider-Man.
It was
It was
good.
made by Man of
Yeah.
Action.
It was good. It had a good It had a good art style. It had actually good animation. It had two-tone shading, which was nice. And then you have Assembled, where they just completely threw the shading out the window because their animation budget wasn't that big, and because they canceled EMH for just no reason at all. After say that season 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man, everything for those Marvel shows were very much synergy with either the movies or what was on Disney Channel at the time. And thus we get to the Jessie crossover. We'll be back after we watch Ultimate Spider-Man X Jessie. And we're back. We have just finished watching the episode for Ultimate Spider-Man Season 3, Episode 10, Halloween Night at Museum. So, do you guys want to give your thoughts?
Can you untie me so I can go home now?
No, you're stuck in my closet, man. Listen, you're with good company, though. I got Becky in there, I got Kadikarus, I got Godzilla Mendoza.
Let me out!
I guess since we're already sidelining the conversation, that tells you the quality of this show.
It wasn't that good.
It was fine.
It's an Ultimate Spider-Man episode.
Which is
I was really only there for the Komodo dragon from Jessie.
yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Kibble. Yeah.
Mrs. Kibling, hell yeah!
God, really stole the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Just-
Mrs. Kibling. They are. It was later revealed in like season 3 of Jessie that it is a Mrs. Kibling. They lay eggs.
Well, she stole the
She did.
show. The
Her
overwhelming
voice crack-
love and passion I felt in my heart for
Yeah.
that Komodo dragon. The whole episode was amazing. When she tore that child in half, though, I was like, how did this get a TV? How does not get a TV MA rating? They really did end Jessie in an Ultimate Spider-Man
know,
episode.
I just can't believe the whole like portion where Jessie got kidnapped by those cavemen. I thought it was just gonna go in such a south direction. I was so surprised when it did too. I just can't believe that they just killed Jessie.
Family Guy.
They barbecued her. They barbecued her straight in front of children. Who would have thought?
Who would have
Yeah.
thunked it? You know,
It
it's really nice to see that Ultimate Spider-Man was willing to experiment with those more
Mhm.
mature themes,
Yeah.
though, and really subvert expectations for what we thought a
I-
Jessie crossover
I
was
know,
going to be.
it's mind blowing. In that part where just Bertram just came out of nowhere and just completely killed the rest of the cast, that was just nuts.
It's peak cinema.
That
right there.
was
Cinema.
Cinema at its
Mhm.
finest.
Scorsese. You just need to watch this, man. If you're listening to this random ass podcast on YouTube, you got to watch the Ultimate Spider-Man Jessie crossover. It's worth the wait. But in actuality, yeah, this episode sucked. It is a very boring episode.
We were just talking about Team Fortress 2.
We just during the episode we were just like, yeah, Team Fortress 2 is a pretty cool game.
Yeah, you know, I miss TF2.
But then you remember the bots.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
I think this show is just like, I think this was just kind of pushed on the writers, like, hey, we got this show Jessie, we want to kind of promote it. can you guys do a quick crossover with the cast? We'll get all the cast to voice act and everything. Just write just write it. Just write it. And they're like, but we don't even watch the show. What are we supposed to do here?
I do know that it was cool for like the kid actors to like come in like be like, oh my god, it's me in a cartoon with Spider-Man. That felt so
that
genuine.
was that
Watching,
must
like,
have been
the
fun. Actually, I will say one of the actors that was in this episode, Cameron Boyce, I think his name is. He later did
Royce.
Yeah, Cameron Bryce, I think. Yeah, that's his name. He's the guy who played Luke in this show, and he actually later went on to voice another Spider-Man villain in the 2017 series. He played the Shocker.
Well, we don't really talk about that.
We don't talk about it. I just wanted to mention that because I think it was like 2019 he did pass away.
That is unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Who are we talking about?
The kid Luke, he died from a seizure.
I didn't.
He passed away from a seizure.
Sorry to hear that.
I just want to at least mention that because he was a voice actor for the Spider-Man, the 2017 series, and he actually was very enthusiastic about it. So like all power to him. It's
pretty cool.
I'm glad he got to at least voice a character that he really liked. But however, now that I've gotten that portion out of the way, I will say Luke as a Jessie character. I don't know if you guys have really realized how creepy the character Luke is in the show. He was constantly pining over Jessie, a woman that is 20 years older than him.
Sigma grind set. What
I
can
don't
say?
blame it, but it's... No, I'm kidding.
That show is it is Disney had this weird thing that they wanted all the child actors to keep pining over these adults. So you had like Zach from Zach and Cody pining over Maddie, a clearly like 10 years older than him teenager.
Was Dan Schneider involved with the show?
Honestly, I for a while I thought Dan Schneider did make a Disney sitcom, but I completely confused with Ant Farm for some reason.
Oh yeah,
that was the other show I would try to remember. Ant Farm. How the fuck that?
Oh, Ant Farm's on the list. Ant Farm is on the master list, so that'll eventually happen. The plot for this episode was forgettable.
It was fine.
What happened again?
I
forgot.
The witch lady comes out the sword. She wants to destroy things, and then they shove her back in the sword. It's a soul stone, but for swords.
I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
Was there a lady? Who is she? I hardly know her.
Let me see if like Morgan Le Fay is from the comics.
Okay, I completely forgot her name too. I forgot it was Morgan Le Fay.
I searched up the wiki right now. I was like, huh. Let me see.
So I will say the voice actress for Morgan Le Fay was Gray DeLise, who is the famous voice actress for voicing Daphne and Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh yeah, I did recognize that voice.
So she was a character from the comics. She appeared in Black Knight #1. This was back around the 1955. I'm just reading it off the wiki by Stanley. I think I'm seeing like other versions. She appeared in like Age of Ultron, the comics. That's all the wiki says. There's another event called Secret Wars. I think she also appeared in Secret Wars.
Oh, she did. Okay,
with, like,
if she had only appeared in like one issue, I'm like, okay, they just scooped her out there. But if they're more established, then I guess that makes a little more sense. Then I will say I've never heard of this character, and I doubt that she's ever had a Spider-Man crossover up until that point. Just because,
yeah. Not exactly the first choice I would have for a Spider-Man episode myself.
This episode came in like the weird portion of that season too. Just looking at that season lineup, you had a few like crossovers with other superhero characters, and then you just straight up go to the Spider-Verse arc that they had.
Here we go, Camelot, baby. You liked Spider-Verse? Well, now we're going back to the Knights.
Then because they had those specials, they had 2099 Spider-Man. All of them were like the 2099 one was the only one in a different animation style, which is interesting.
Well, it's more like the other characters were like color palettes. There was like Spider-Ham, animation wise. It's just that Spider-Man 2099 was in 3D, which I really loved the look of. As I was like searching the clips on YouTube when I was younger, it's like, oh shit, Spider-Man 2099
in 3D. Whoa, we're computer graphics.
Whoa. Let's go.
Whoa, let's go, bros. We're in the 3D. I just think it's interesting. That's just like the only crossover that it had with anything outside of Marvel was Jessie for the Ultimate Spider-Man. That's the only crossover
looking through the
they
list
did.
in Disney Plus, where it's like they had the Hulk, they had Spider-Ham, but not really. They had Flash.
Yeah,
Of course, they had Flash Thompson, and then they had like characters like White Tigress,
Yeah.
Iron Fist, Power Man, like
I actually didn't know about White Tiger until that show happened, and then I was like, oh wow, she's a really cool character, honestly.
But then they had like Wolverine, as like you can have Wolverine, but not the Fantastic Four.
They did
really.
have the Fantastic Four for one episode, though. Actually, I will. It was, I think it's season 2. They did the same. It was basically the similar plot to the Wolverine episode they had, where they switched minds, but they did it with the Hulk, and so Spider-Man and Hulk had switched bodies and everything. And in that episode, they had the Thing in for like 5 seconds, and then and I know in like Hulk and the Agents of Smash, they had a Human Torch cameo and a Thing cameo. I can't imagine the inner politics and workings to get those that crossover happening, because as we know, Marvel did not want to do shit with the X-Men and Fantastic Four for years.
The only appearance the Thing fully made was in the other Marvel animated show called Hulk and the Agents of Smash.
Yeah, those are the only times the Fantastic Four, some of the most iconic superheroes of all time, had appeared on a Marvel show.
Man, I really hope they do the Fantastic Four justice in the MCU.
Yeah, I hope so too. If not, then we're gonna have a very terrible time with comics.
I was catching up with like a lot of Mark Waid runs, and then after like seeing No Way Home, I was like, okay, yeah, he could do justice for Fantastic Four. He never missed with his villains. I want to see his Doctor Doom, and then he had to drop out. I was like, John Watts is like, fuck, better not be Peyton Reed. Hopefully it's Brad Bird. I would love for
Brad Bird directing an MCU movie. I would love to see that. See what
I'll be honest, I'm kind of just done with the MCU at this point.
I feel that.
Burnt out. I'm just waiting for Invincible and
listen, I will say Moon Knight broke me. Moon Knight broke me, and then Multiverse of Madness just brought me back to life. I'm like, oh.
I still need to see that. I still need to see that.
I still need to see it as well.
I won't spoil it then, I guess.
Oh, trust me, I've gotten so many spoilers.
It's Twitter.
Twitter.
We're all Twitter.
The hour it came out, everybody on Twitter was posting full-on scenes from it.
I was like, I'm one of
with no
I
spoiler
feel like I'm one of the
warning.
most nicest people when it comes to spoilers on Twitter, because I don't tweet any spoilers. Like, I will be like, that scene was cool. I won't say what the scene was, but people will immediately know if they've seen it. I love that movie, but God, I hate Twitter because of how fast I actually did get spoiled a little bit on Multiverse of Madness, because I knew the if let's guess spoilers for Multiverse of Madness, I guess you guys both know this. John Krasinski is in the movie.
Yeah. Absolutely,
yeah. I was spoiled on that.
I never cared about the fan casts for Reed. I didn't care about them. I didn't like that people were going insane over like, this is the worst casting in the world. This man does not deserve to be Reed Richards, and I was like, it's just I don't care about the casting as long as the writing's there.
I don't think people understand that it's the writing that kind of makes the character, not the actor who fully makes the character. The actor has a part in making that character, but it's also the writing of that character. And if you have John Krasinski and you write him terribly, people will know and people will notice that. But if you have really good writing for John Krasinski and he can act his ass off, you're gonna have a good Mr. Fantastic.
Exactly.
When did fan casting like turn around from like John Krasinski to like Glenn Howard? As like once I started like seeing more of Glenn Howard.
Honestly, if it was Glenn Howard, I would kill for that. I would kill to have Glenn Howard as Reed Richards in a film.
Actually, okay, I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently, like it kind of leaked out that originally they were gonna have Daniel Craig playing Mr. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's like
Ooh,
I
I'm
saw that
okay.
today. I was like, really?
That is
Whatever.
insanely interesting that they were gonna go with that route, and then they ended up doing the fan cast. That is like so different, and I'm really interested to be in that universe where that it actually happened.
Usually with Marvel movies, I see them like it's my religion. Like every time they go up, except for Black Widow, because well, I didn't really like feel much about Black Widow. I like usually opening weekend, Thursdays, I go with my brothers who like been watching it with me. But like Friday, I had my first fight, like amateur boxing. I won, but then I was like,
Nice.
shit, I never had time to like watch it until like this Tuesday. I don't really care for spoilers now because Twitter's a thing and shit.
Twitter is a fun
See-
little piece of work.
It saps my soul daily. I have nothing left. I'm a husk.
Seeing people's reactions to like Moon Knight's on Twitter first, and then watching
Twitter
the
took my eyes.
Twitter is that place that I go that I can't stop being on it, but I hate it at the same time that I can't stop being on it. It is the
Elon
addiction
Musk,
that
that's
it's the
the
addiction that I can't get away from. Elon Musk is going to be.
Yeah.
Elon Musk hopefully is the breaking point when I get out of it, when I get off of Twitter.
See, I have ADHD, so it's these nice little bite-sized arguments that keep me interested.
I have ADD,
And-
so I have none of that hyperactivity portion of it, but I feel you on that.
Whenever people come up to me saying, "Oh, I have a Twitter account," or like, "I'm gonna start one," it's like,
Don't.
"Don't leave,
Get out of here.
leave, damn it,
Get out of here while you still can.
Get out while you still can.
be free, damn it, be free,
Leave this place while you have a chance.
leave me."
Get out of here while you still can. Look what happened to me.
There's
Look what happened to me.
there's a difference in reactions when you hear people say, "Oh, I follow your Instagram," versus "I follow your Twitter."
That is a good ass point.
And even people from work or school is like, "Hey, I saw your Twitter." It's like, "What did you see? What did you see?" My
We
God.
have been talking about anything but the episode for about 19 minutes.
That just shows how interesting it was.
Yeah,
was
it was the most compelling piece of media I've seen in ages.
I'm gonna be entirely honest. I don't remember anything from that episode. Just in the
We
last 5 minutes.
Watched it together.
I know,
It
I
goes
just sort
in
of-
one eye, out the other.
I'm so
It-
confused.
this show is just such a it's just such a very Ike Perlmutter, Jeff Loeb show to be made.
God, I Perlmutter.
You're entirely right. It really doesn't capture a lot of what I think makes Spider-Man such a timeless hero in the first place. Like you lose a lot of his supporting cast, his working class stories. The fact is that he just doesn't work as this shield agent on a team of grade A superheroes.
Yeah, exactly. With this show, like what it did, it was because the first season had a supporting cast. It had you had Mary Jane making many appearances in episodes. You had the overarching arc with Harry and Norman and Doc Ock and all these other things. So it was all kind of building to something. And then the finale happened where Harry's basically gone for the entire afterwards. Green Goblin is fully risen, and that's just what happens going forward. There's nothing else. It's just the Goblin story arc. There's nothing to do with the school. The only scarce one was the really good Stan Lee episode they had with him. But
Oh
that was
yeah,
a
I
really
remember
good
that.
episode.
I think what it became is a cameo fest that I fear the MCU is going to become very soon. With how people reacted to Multiverse of Madness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, why wasn't Blade in it? Why wasn't Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in it? I was promised all these things. Where's Deadpool?
I was promised that I could see 1984 Spider-Man on the big screen once again. I'm suing Marvel for defamation.
They didn't bring Stan Lee back to life for this. They didn't grab the Necronomicon and resurrect this man so I could see him make a cameo.
Hey folks, just Future Zach here. This episode was recorded on May 14th. We had no idea that only in a few days, Marvel would make a deal that would basically resurrect Stan Lee using archive footage. I have no idea how Nora's sarcasm made the future, but here we are. And now back to the podcast. They had to do Resurrection of Benedict Cumberbatch, so it's a hand-me-down.
You know, originally Ultimate Spider-Man was going to be adapted at MTV, and there was concept art by John Paul Leon, in which it had like Spider-Man in a purple shade of. I wonder if like that was going to adapt more closely to the comics, and if so, staying on MTV or on Disney. I wonder how different would it be.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too. Just
what if they just changed art styles out of nowhere? Like, oh, well, we're doing the new 2017 art style. Sorry, we lost all the shading. No reason.
I'm interested in what would have happened if it would have just continued, especially if with Drake Bell being who he is now. If that show had been going, what would have happened?
Why didn't they just keep Josh Keaton?
I think it's legal stuff, because legally, like, Marvel could not do Spectacular because Sony owns the rights for all of Spectacular.
Yeah.
So Disney,
They're able to bring back J.K. Simmons. They're able to bring back J.K. Simmons every time J. Jonah Jameson makes an appearance, but Josh Keaton.
I think it's specifically because J.K. Simmons isn't like under legal contract of like, oh, this is the version that is owned by Sony, because it's just J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
But the version of Spider-Man that is voiced by Josh Keaton, having this massive supporting cast, I think that's kind of the reason why they kind of did such a different version of Spider-Man where he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, because they be so legally distinct from the original Spider-Man. I think that's just mainly why they did that, so it can be so legally distinct that Sony couldn't sue them at the time.
I really hope they have, like, now it's more of a possibility to bring back Spectacular Spider-Man on Disney Plus, because you got X-Men 97, I believe.
Yeah, 97
coming back to Disney Plus.
I will say, with the Sony deal, that because they've basically bought Sony films from this year till 2026. They've gotten 4 years of Sony films and shows to come on Disney Plus, which will be coming around, I think, in July or June. No Way Home will be like many years from now, though, because the Star has exclusivity for a few years. But Far From Home, Homecoming, the original Raimi trilogy, the Amazing Duology, those should all be on Disney Plus, I think, in June-ish. With that
sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, with that deal, I mean, Spectacular is really close to really possibly being revived, and that would be phenomenal if that happens.
There's also
I would love for that to happen.
Where like Spider-Man isn't gonna have movies soon because like John Watson's taking a break. They just finished the trilogy. Phase 4 is already planned out. There's gonna be a period where there's not gonna be that much Spider-Man media unless it's like, you know, Spider-Man freshman
and
year.
Spider-Verse as well.
So I think like
which I'll be honest, I'm not really looking forward to freshman year.
Same.
It's just a retread of what we've already seen.
Yeah, it's a prequel show to kind of like say, this is how we got from this moment to this moment. And I think I can agree there. Yeah, it's gonna feel like a retread because we're gonna be
Uncle Ben's gonna be the main villain.
Peter, with great power comes great mind goblin.
Uncle Ben, what is mind goblin?
You're too late, I've already legalized weed.
But Uncle Ben, you're too old to smoke weed. Your lungs can't take it.
Yeah, watch me.
And that's how he dies.
That's how he dies. Spider-Man just becomes like this is how the Spider-Man drug PSA has come along now.
My uncle died from smoking too good of a blunt. And that's why you can't smoke weed.
You can have this Mary Jane.
You can have this.
But not the
You can have that Mary.
There's only one Mary Jane, and she's mine.
Well, that's, yeah. You can't do that, though, because it's like, you know, it wouldn't exactly work with, this is my Michelle Jones.
This is my...
Oh, right.
What? Michelle Jones, you know. The other word for weed in this universe. Why? I don't know.
Yo, you want to pass
Honestly,
some
with the
Jones?
multiverse they've set up, that definitely could be a possibility where they say like, "Oh, Michelle is just a slang word for weed for this universe." That could work.
That's just how it be sometimes.
Do you not understand the ethics of the multiverse? Do you not understand the rules of the multiverse here? Everything is possible.
I actually hate multiverse stories so much.
I
don't
love
like
and
them.
hate them. I think it when it works, it really works. When it doesn't work, it really doesn't work.
Yeah, when it's done very quickly,
Yeah.
without too much fan service, I think it's quite nice. But when it becomes the crux of your character, like they've done for Spider-Verse now, it's like, if I'm being honest, I would like to see a Miles Morales film where he isn't, going around meeting other spider
Yeah,
people.
I can see that.
I am looking forward to the new one, but
Mm.
if Ben Reilly and Mayday Parker aren't in it, I
can agree to that.
Well, I'll leave that to your imagination.
I know that because they definitely announced
always gonna be the
announced
Joker.
Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. They had Spider-Gwen. Then Spider-Man from the Japanese Power Rangers-esque show. I hope
I don't like Spider-Gwen.
no one really. Honestly, with what it's done to comics, I think we all can agree that Spider-Gwen was a massive mistake.
Just let her stay dead, please. I'm begging you. Just let her
Have you
stay
s-
dead.
They're bringing her back. And have you seen the
the
cover of?
Yes, they're bringing
Have
her
you
back.
seen the cover? Nora, have
She
you
looks
seen?
so
Have you
tired.
seen the cover?
Yeah, she looks
She's
so
just
tired.
like,
Just
just let
like
me
me.
die, guys.
Let
Come
me see
on.
if you
Oh boy, I'm being resurrected again. Let's go. I guarantee that Nick Lowe had a lot to do with during the most recent the whole Kindred arc. Ben Reilly was supposed to be in it. There are storyboards featuring Ben Reilly because, he's a big part of Peter's life. He was best friends with Harry. He has those memories. All of this matters to him. But they didn't have him in it. But they had Spider-Gwen. I guarantee you, because of Nick Lowe's weird obsession with Gwen and his weird hatred for Ben Reilly, he cut Ben and shoved in Spider-Gwen.
Oh right.
Hmm.
Whereas like it was fully inked, and then they had to like change Ben Reilly to Miles Morales. And
Really?
the pose. for-
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that.
I don't have them saved anymore, but I was so mad when I found out about that because they cut him out because Nick Lowe was like, oh, he doesn't really have a place in the story. By the way, we're bringing him back to make him a villain again. So subversive.
I need to get back
It's
to reading comics. It's
subverting
just
your
they've been so
expectations, man.
The JMD, Ben Reilly, the one true Spider-Man run that they're doing right now, the Lost Stories, is one of the greatest runs I've ever
Really?
read. It just understands and respects the character so well. It brought me to tears, if I'm being honest with you, just being able to see him again, which I don't think we've seen really Ben Reilly since the 90s. Since then, it's been these weird, oh, he's a grizzled Kane, like he uses guns, or he's a villain, or he's a corporate stooge.
Yeah.
I just want Ben
I feel
back,
that.
the one that got over his guilt and didn't need Uncle Ben's death to motivate him to be a hero. He just was a hero. It's what he wanted to do with his life. The speech, I know this is...
Oh, no, you're
so
fine.
off
It
topic,
is
but
fine.
the speech he makes when he's fighting Lady Octopus, when he's like, I'm going to fight her and I'm going to stop her, but I refuse to hate her. Just, that's what I want from Ben Reilly. He is the happy-go-lucky, over his guilt Spider-Man. Peter's got the whole everything. He's got the Parker luck. Ben Reilly got over the Parker luck.
He accepted the Parker luck.
And he's a barista.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I thought that Beyond was finally going to do that when we got that first page of him saying, hello, Peter, in his cuffed jeans and his flannel. I was like, oh my God, Ben's back. He's got the blonde hair. He's got everything. He's going to ditch Beyond. He's going to find out that they're stupid, like all corporations are, and he's going to be Spider-Man again. And they just didn't do that.
They just made him a villain. Yeah.
Like, even before that, though, like with his crossover with Black Cat, where he's so abrasive towards her, and when she mocks him for the whole corporation thing and being Spider-Man, and everybody in that entire run is like, no, Ben's not Spider-Man, Peter's Spider-Man, we got to get him back out of bed, even Captain America. And I think at one point Ben's like, well, legally I have every right to call myself Spider-Man. He shouldn't need to say that. You know, he's just as much Spider-Man as Peter is.
I don't even understand.
He doesn't need Peter's permission.
Like, they've made this whole point over comic books in years of pushing this, that anyone can be Spider-Man. Anyone can wear that mask. But not Ben Reilly. Yeah. And it's so irritating that that I think it's just because we've been so pushed with Peter Parker over, even when we've made other Spider-Man characters and we've made other Spider-Men, we have been pushed so much of just nothing but Peter Parkers. It's
yeah, I think genuinely we would live in a societal utopia if Peter had permanently retired with Mary Jane and the baby in the 90s and Ben had just stayed Spider-Man.
I agree.
And I understand that leads to a lot of problems. Like, if you want to bring Flash Thompson back, like, we would never have gotten Agent Venom and all that, because Ben doesn't have that relationship with them anymore. But I feel like he could cultivate new relationships with this cast of characters. And his new cast of characters that got completely cut as soon as Ben stopped being Spider-Man. Everyone from the Daily Grind where he worked, Janine, they just stopped existing. And also, real quick, we would never have gotten the JMS run.
Yeah.
I need to catch up on that. I have been hearing great things about it.
The greatest Spider-Man run of all time.
It's where, like, Spider-Man got more mystical with, like, more Marlon, Ezekiel. Yeah. And then there's also, like, a lot of, like, funny stories where he's just, like, walking down the wall and then he just meets a New Yorker with popcorn.
Yeah, I think it's some of his best characterization with Mary Jane and Aunt May. It's where Aunt May definitively finds out
that he's Spider-Man,
was John Romita Jr., right?
Yes, and John Romita Jr. just being the best Spider-Man artist.
He's such a great artist. I love his art.
I love him so much.
I wonder
I'm
if
so glad he's
made
I'm so glad he's
back
as an artist for Spider-Man right now.
San Francisco.
Yeah. So, Ultimate Spider-Man, huh?
What
a show. Jessie, right?
So memorizing. And I can now cross that one off the list of 145 crossovers. So, 145.
Dear God.
I have...
Dear
yes.
God.
So, just final verdict, everybody. Just in terms of a crossover, do you think this is worth a watch? Yes or no?
No.
You could watch something better.
Okay.
You could write something better. I could make a better Jessie and Ultimate Spider-Man crossover.
We should do that. Let's
Gertrude becomes God. He is exacting his will over the earth, and Peter and Doctor Strange have to stop him.
That's what No Way Home should have been.
Multi-billion-dollar
That is what No Way
idea.
Home should have been. That's why Doctor Strange was in No Way Home. See, they filmed that and they just cut it from No Way Home. It sucks.
The reason he couldn't stop the multiverse people coming through at the end is because Gertrude was keeping the portal open with his bare hands.
All right.
Nothing could stop him. The only way to stop him was if he didn't know who Peter Parker was.
No one can stop him. He's the Juggernaut. He's the Juggernaut, bitch.
He's the Juggernaut, bitch. Now, to close things out, though, for the podcast, I will be spinning the wheel of what next week's next episode. I don't know if I'm doing this weekly or bi-weekly. I'm going to spin the wheel for what next week's episode will be. You guys can stay for the you guys will be on the if you guys want to, you guys can come to the next episode. It's all up to you.
Consider me titillated.
All right.
Hopefully.
I'm going to spin the wheel and I will read out what this has given us. 3, 2, 1.
Chug.
144. Come on, what we get here? I party with Victorious. Oh! I
might have to sit that one out.
I have a lot to say, not because of like what's in it. It's just the amount of background context I want to say about it. Like, was like Ariana Grande, fucking Dan Schneider.
Oh, that's gonna be a
lot of
fun
cute-
episode.
That's gonna be fun.
That's going to be a deep rabbit hole that I don't think you're going to come back from.
I had already watched it once.
I-
I have to survive there. I hope I can survive again. So
I mean, Zach's already in this rabbit hole, so we can't stop him now.
Yeah.
so before we end things off, you got stuff to plug? Go on, Nora, you go first. Go ahead and plug any of your stuff.
I have a YouTube channel called the Synth Voice Network that I think you should definitely check out. I do voiceovers, mainly just Spider-Man because I have autism and I got really hyper focused on Spider-Man and realized, hey, I can voice him really well. And now I just do constant Spider-Man voiceovers. So if you want to check that out, it is the Synth Voice Network. Go for it.
And Marco?
You can check out my Twitter. I don't think that's a question. No, that's
Twitter. I hardly know her.
I don't think that's a sentence I'll be saying often, but like you can check out my Twitter. I do commissions. We can always negotiate on that. I'm a prospering amateur boxer, along with actor, all these jack of trades that hopefully get me somewhere. And
I will say, definitely, I always recommend this to anybody. Just definitely go for Marco. He is a phenomenal artist. I loved working with him on making my character, Iron.
And deadlines too. Don't forget the deadlines.
He's really good with good
yeah.
with deadlines too. He is a phenomenal person to work with. I definitely always recommend him. And definitely go out, follow Nora, subscribe to their new YouTube channel, to her YouTube channel. Both of you guys do phenomenal work. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
To close things out, you guys can follow this podcast on the Twitter at @crossover_Nexus. You can also follow the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Iron Ninja, where you will also find various videos that I've created covering various topics such as PlayStation and video games. You can also follow my Twitter at Iron Ninja 2000. I wish it was just regular Iron Ninja, but that one was taken, and I'm stuck with what I got. Also, I would like to shout out Becky Morrison, who was at Hex and Bex, who actually was going to be on the podcast, but due to issues with her laptop, was not able to join us. Again, that is Becky Morrison at Hex and Bex on Twitter. You can also follow her on her YouTube channel at Hex and Bex on YouTube. Other than that, I'm going to leave you guys with a small preview to next episode. I will see you all next time on the Nexus. So, we have just returned from watching iCarly Season 3, Episode 10, I Party with Victorious. I want to ask Tyler first. Tyler, what were your thoughts on this crossover of epic proportions?
Yeah, so, yeah. So, before this, my whole life I've wanted to make movies and to like give people the joy of filmmaking, like in a theater and through the cinematic experience. Now I want to jump off a bridge. So thank you, Dan Schneider.
Thank you, Dan Schneider.
Wow.